Any college football fan with a pulse knows that Texas-Arkansas should be a decent game, but college football fans that have been around a couple decades have some rather increased appreciation for this one. Go back to the Southwest Conference days, and yeah, this one is an interesting one just to see these two uniforms on the same field again. It's been a while. They've met in a bowl game since, but you get that old-time Southwestern Conference feel, but it's the SEC versus the Big 12, or if you're progressive thinking, it's the SEC against the SEC. We got Ty Hudson, of course, on the line from Pig Trail Network to give us the hog side. Ty, how we doing today?
Yo, Mark, how you doing, my man? Hope all's well.
Everything's good. Everything's good. The Hogs are 1-0, so that's always a good thing. We'll review the game against Rice, and they were able to step it up in the fourth quarter and pull away, but it was a bit touch and go for quite a period of time. But before we get to the action on the field, we'll get to kind of the ramifications from the Rice game in regards to personnel. So Darian Gerald's a guy that you filled me in on prior to the record here, just in regards to the unfortunate circumstances involving a highly touted player coming out of high school who's ready to hit the field each and every season. And now this is a third consecutive season with all the work in the weight room, the film room, two-a-day, the whole thing through spring and summer, and then you hit the field that first game, and it all comes to an end.
Yeah, broke his leg. I think it was Tuesday. It was either Tuesday or yesterday. The weeks just they fly by, especially during the season. It's crazy how the days fly by. But he's out with a broken leg. I think this is 3 years straight where he's opened for the Razorbacks. He participates in the week one matchup, and then he's done. Like that's happened before. This is, again, I think this is the third straight time. Highly touted JUCO defensive end. This guy I think he was the number 2 defensive end out of that JUCO class. I want to say 2018, I think. But it's just unfortunate. He was projected to be a big time piece to that defense, as they try to rebuild that defensive line, and he was supposed to be a pretty big part of it this year, either as a starter or as a 2-deep guy. But there was no doubt in my mind he's a starter. He's that caliber of defensive end. We saw flashes of it, whether it was in spring or even a little bit that we've seen him in one game the last 3 years. You see these flashes of him being a presence on the field, but unfortunately, looks like his year's over with.
Trey Knox is definitely a player that we've talked about a number of times, and certainly has already shown his value on the football field as a wide receiver. But to accommodate get more playmakers on the field, maybe changing positions.
Yeah, a guy that was another highly rated player. He came out of high school out of Tennessee as a 4-star. Someone who his freshman year looked like, well, he might be the star of this receiving core. And that was a really good class that he came in with. Of course, Burks was in that class alongside him, who is now projected as a possible top 12, top 15 first-round draft pick, according to Mel Kiper. But at first, we thought Knox would be that guy. Again, his freshman year, outstanding, considering the circumstances, who your head coach was and how discombobulated that offense was. He stood out a little bit. Last year, doesn't do much. He had single-digit receptions, if I remember right. Didn't do anything against Rice last weekend. I don't even think. I think, did he even catch a ball? I'm not even sure he no, he didn't. He didn't have a single catch. Blake Kern and Katron Jackson had catches, and he didn't. He was a non-factor on offense. So they're going to move him to tight. Well, they're practicing him with the tight ends. He's working out with the tight ends. He's not been officially moved to the position, I don't believe. I might be a little bit behind on some of the coach, when Sam Pittman talks to the media, I might be a little bit behind, but I don't think that's been official yet. But they're thin there. They're thin. Blake Kern, who's been a little banged up already. I mean, he missed a little bit of time during fall camp. Hudson Henry, if that cat could stay healthy, I'm telling you, Mark, he's got a high ceiling. Just for whatever reason, he's just kind of been he's just injury prone, but he's someone I think that has a high ceiling. He's got to get there first, and to get there, you got to be on the field more. And right now Blake Kern's been beating him out. So now they're just kind of doing whatever they can because it's really those two guys and nothing else. And we know tight ends are pretty active in this offense. They move around, in motion. They're kind of kick out block guys. They can be lead blockers. They can be check down targets. They have a role in this offense, and you need to be ready. I said this in the preseason going into the final or coming out of the final week of fall camp. I said the 3 spot for the tight ends needs to be solidified. It's not maybe they hope by some point this year Knox could maybe fill that role, or maybe put him in for certain packages where you don't need him to block, right? I mean, but he's got a big frame. He's 6'5". I think he's around 215, 220, somewhere in there. Pretty good frame. Put on some weight. He reminds me a little bit. He could maybe develop into maybe what Jeremy Sprinkle was for Arkansas several years back. I think he could be that role, but you're talking about a pretty big change here. You're talking about receiver to now a tight end, and obviously it's a really big change. So whether or not he adapts to the position, assuming he is moved there, which may still not happen. But if he is, we'll see if he catches on and see if he ever makes the field playing that position. And it wouldn't shock me. It would not shock me at all to see him come out in some package where he's in at tight end.
Trey Knox, 28 catches, 3 touchdowns 2 years ago, caught 7 last year, and again did not hit the box score this past week against Rice, 38-17 win for the Hogs. And you had mentioned to me before we started to record Trey Williams, the defensive end, not necessarily anything official on him. Don't want to alarm anyone. Just some conjecture there, just based on observation during practice that he might be hobbled a bit.
Yeah, I've reached out to everyone that I can, and I've not gotten a response yet. Well, I mean, what they've told me is they don't know anything, or they haven't responded. So I don't know what's going on there with him. Hopefully, it's nothing serious. If it were serious, I think we would know something by now. Then again, we are recording this at almost 6 p.m. on a Thursday. Maybe we'll find something else out tomorrow, but I think he's fine. Normally that sort of stuff seeps through. Like we found out, it seems like literally hours after the Dorian Gerald stuff. So some of that stuff slips through the cracks, that information. So maybe I feel like if something were serious, we would know by now. But it could be a situation where maybe he just doesn't play as much against Texas this weekend, or maybe he just misses a game, and that's why it hasn't been major breaking news just yet. It's not as serious as the Dorian Gerald smoke that made its way to social media, and so hopefully that's all it is. Hopefully it's very limited, nothing serious. But he was seen hobbled around on I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday. This week he was seen hobbling around, going through drills.
We've got a number of post-game shows available for you each and every week here at the Voice of College Football, including Texas, Arkansas on the Texas channel. So Arkansas fans, full disclosure here, it's going to be very Texas slanted, but if you have nothing else to check out after the ball game on the Texas channel here at the Voice of College Football, and plenty on the SEC channel involving Texas A&M, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, LSU on a Saturday. We got Ty Hudson, Pig Trail Network, join him right there, covering the Hogs. All right, pretty close game against Rice, much of the way. The Hogs pull away late, win at 38-17. KJ Jefferson put it in the air 21 times. As you look over the course of the offense there, what stands out positively, negatively, and what means something toward the Texas game?
Well, this has been a pretty hot topic this week. What was happening with KJ Jefferson's pass game? Where were the vertical routes? Right? Why weren't we throwing the ball deep against Rice? I mean, this isn't a P5 school. I mean, no disrespect to Rice folks, but I mean, this why didn't they kind of open things up a little bit more, especially considering that first half? I mean, you were trailing in the first half, and Sam Pittman replied to that question actually this week. Someone in the media asked him, or had made the observation that they didn't see a lot of deep routes, and Sam Pittman's response was, well, we didn't want to, we were struggling to stay on the field, so we didn't want to risk. I guess maybe what he was alluding to was he didn't want to risk turning the ball over. I don't know. I'm going to tell you right now, they were holding back. They were not opening up that playbook, Mark. I mean, that's what stood out to me in that post-game show. That's what stood out to me as I watched the game again on Sunday. They didn't put Malik Hornsby on the field at all, and we know they want to utilize him. They've talked about it. His speed, this is a guy that probably runs a legit 4.40, maybe faster. He is quick, Mark. He takes up 10, 15 yards in a snap. I mean, he's got burst when he's got that ball in his hands and he chooses to take off and run. We didn't see him at all. So how much of that was them just simply not opening up the playbook? And I think that was a big part of it. And then they realized going in at half, okay, we got to take this serious. We need to open things up a little bit more. And you saw KJ start to play a little bit better. But in the first half, I think he had something like 30 yards passing. It was bad. I mean, he started off 0 for 4 passing. There were drops. And, I yield to the people who were calling me out about that in my postgame show on Saturday. Ty, if they didn't drop the ball, he would have been plus 70% pass completion. I would argue if you watch the game, and again, I said this again on Monday, he didn't have a lot of touch on the ball. He didn't have a lot of touch. He wasn't throwing super accurate. Receivers were having to adjust their bodies. They're having to catch the ball behind them. He was overthrowing people left and right. Got to sharpen that up for especially against Texas, who, I mean, they're going to get after you. They're going to come after KJ. They're going to pin their ears back, and they're going to try and prevent him from doing the thing that made him look good in the second half, which was take off and running. They're going to try and prevent him from doing that. So they're going to have to get sharper in the passing game. But, yeah, I mean, he was, like you said, he was 12 of 21, 128 yards with a touchdown and a pick. He had an adjusted quarterback rating of 54.5 or 54.5. That's not good. And again, I understand the drops, but I still think he didn't have a lot of touch. But the positive that I think that carries into this game without a doubt was their ground game. I mean, they had almost 250 yards on the ground, and a lot of that was in the second half. They outscored Rice, 31 to 7 in the second half. And they put up 21 of those in the fourth quarter. It was very clear they wore Rice down. You're not going to be able to do that against Texas. You're not going to wear them down. I mean, this is Texas. I mean, they've got the talent. They have the roster full of 4 stars and 5 stars, and they're deep. They're especially deep on the defensive line. They're very good on the defensive line, I think. And I think maybe they were holding back a little bit against Louisiana to some extent. I realized they were playing a much higher quality opponent than we were. But, I hopefully – they lean more on KJ running the ball, but they're going to have to sharpen up those throws. Treylon ended up with over 100 yards, 22 carries, 102 yards, almost 5 yards a carry. He had a touchdown. KJ, of course, 9 carries, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a, 65-yarder that was a score, but then it got called back. So they lost, it was a spot foul. So they didn't get all those yards taken away, but a pretty good chunk of them. It definitely would have put him over the 100-yard mark. Arkansas hasn't had a quarterback do that in a little bit, but and he also would have had another touchdown to add to his overall stats. But yeah, those are definitely some good signs there that they were able to take off and run and just wear Rice down. Hopefully they can do something close to that against Texas. But they're, like I said, they're going to have to get that pass game going. I mean, they're going to have to be able to open things up. They're going to have to draw up more vertical routes. You're going to have to get guys downfield. Burks, he participated, as far as I know, he's participated in all at practice this week, which was not the case going into Rice. So he's participated. We know, like I mentioned earlier, you're talking about a possible first-round draft pick here. This guy he's a horse with cheetah blood. That's what you're trying to cover here. You're trying to cover a horse with cheetah blood. This guy is crazy good, especially when you consider his size. I mean, he's crazy fast. Sorry. He's crazy athletic and crazy fast for someone his size, 6'3", 235 pounds, whatever it is. He's got huge hands, long arms. His catch radius is insane. Pretty good vertical leap. This guy can make plays. So they're going to have to lean on Burks quite a bit, and Treylon and possibly Raheem Sanders, but especially KJ doing a little bit of what he did against Rice, taking off and running.
To your point about the conservative passing approach, 31 yards was the long pass play of the day to Tyson Morris, who caught 3 passes. Other than that, 17 yards was the longest passing play. I don't know how long those balls traveled in the air. Treylon Burks had a 17-yarder. With KJ Jefferson running it 9 times. And again, I don't know how many of those were designed runs versus him just escaping the pocket. How much do they ideally want him to run the ball?
I think against Texas, you're going to want to see him in double digits. I think he needs to be somewhere between 12 and 15 carries, if I'm being honest. I mean, that was part of why they wore down Rice actually pretty quick. And I'm not saying they're going to be able to do that against Texas because, like I said, I don't think they are. But they're gonna want him to run double digits, and that's just the truth of it, because he did not look sharp against Rice at all throwing the ball. So they're probably going to try and lean on him to take off and run. And I would say week to week they probably want him somewhere around 10 carries a game, if not more. And with a heavy dose, obviously, with Treylon and Raheem Sanders, we actually got to see Dominic Johnson a little bit. He actually scored. It was good to see him on the field. But, yeah, they're going to have to – and don't be surprised, too. Burks will probably carry the ball out of the backfield. He's a Swiss Army knife in this offense. We saw it a year ago. But, yeah, KJ, I'm assuming it wouldn't shock me to see him in the 13 to 15 carry category. Now, he doesn't slide. If you watch him play, he's just as likely to run you over as he is to just run out of bounds. Actually, I would argue he's probably more likely to run you over than he is to run out of bounds. 6'3", 245-pound frame, kind of a little bit heavier than Treylon Burks, but obviously not that level of athlete, but he is absolutely someone who could take off and run. I don't know his 40, probably a 4.6 guy, but, when you're talking about a quarterback running out of the pocket, he's a threat. He's a problem. You've got to figure out a way to really put some pressure on him. In fact, he made a pretty bad decision last week out of the pocket, which, he throws right into coverage and picks the ball off, or throws a pick. I think he was targeting Burks on maybe it was a comeback route, but he typically is a threat. He's a better threat passing the ball when he's out of the pocket, forced to scramble. And Rice was able to take advantage of that in a negative way for him. So, maybe Texas wants to do more of that. Maybe they want to pressure him out of the pocket and force him to beat them with his arm. And that would be the wise thing to do for Texas. But he can be dangerous running the ball, and he can be dangerous out of the pocket, making plays with his arm as well. We saw that against Mizzou last year.
Please like the video, share these videos out on social media, because if you enjoy the content, you're here, then others will as well. So help us build the channel and get the content out there by sharing it out there on social media. Subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. Looks like the Arkansas defense basically picked up where it left off in regards to turning the ball over. And in particular, Jalen Catalon. He's just the guy. So 2 picks right out of the gate for him, 3 interceptions total, with Monteric Brown chipping in with the other one. So pretty good defensive effort. They only limited, Rice only had about 2.1 yards per carry on the ground.
Yeah, I took a little bit of heat last time I was on your show, actually. I don't know if I reached out and talked to you about this. I had some people that weren't real thrilled about what I said with the defensive line. And I don't know that anything changed my opinion about the defensive line coming out of this game, going in against Texas. I don't know that anything happened, but the secondary has stood out, and they stood out last year in the first 5 games until they started getting dinged up. COVID hit this team, so I know that mostly affected the defensive line, especially against LSU, but their DBs they're headed in the right direction, Mark. And with Monteric Brown, who I've said all along is arguably, I think, one of the top, I think he's somewhere in the top 6, top 8 corners that return this year in the SEC. Catalon, his play, if you didn't know his size, you would think he was like 6'3", 215, and runs like a 4.40. This big dude who just makes all these plays. But this guy, 11 tackles. He also had a tackle for loss and 2 picks. His play is unreal. And I don't know who it was. Someone on SEC Network claimed that he was the best safety, or maybe I think he said best defensive back in all of college football. I can't remember who it was that said that, but I don't know if I'm not going that far. I don't want to get called a homer, which I have been accused of, and I've also been accused of being a hater of Arkansas. I'm too harsh on him, but he is most definitely one of the best safeties I've seen play at Arkansas. I mean, he takes me back to, I don't really remember Steve Atwater. I was a kid when Atwater was here, and we all know how legendary he was.
Yep.
I think he's in that realm. I really do. His play is in that realm. If not him, maybe an even better version of Tony Bua, who played a little bit of linebacker safety hybrid. He's better than him. And Tony Bua was fantastic here in that defense at that time under when Houston Nutt was the head coach way back in the early 2000s. but he's a faster version of Tony Bua, and he's way more athletic. He covers and takes away a big chunk of the secondary, takes away a big chunk of that field because of his play. If you make a miscue and you're throwing in his direction and you miss a read even just by half a second, he's going to force you to pay for it one way or another. Either he's going to hit that receiver so hard, and because you threw late to that receiver, he's going to knock that receiver's head off, or he's just going to take the ball away. That's what he is. He is a difference-making player for Arkansas on their defense. I haven't said that about the Razorback defense in years. It's been a while since I think they've had this caliber of a player, especially in the secondary. But you have him, Fouché, who's an experienced safety, who I think is an all-conference caliber safety. Monteric Brown, all-conference caliber corner. Ladarius Bishop, who I would say most of the time is probably the fastest player on the field, and he's your other corner who took the spot of Hudson Clark, who honestly, as a redshirt freshman, as a former walk-on, was pretty good most of the time. He was a liability in man coverage. Ladarius Bishop beat him out, and Hudson played all year last year, most of the years, the other starting corner, and that's who Bishop beat out. And then you throw in the linebackers. They are on the, from the second level on. This defense is as good as anybody, and it's the reason why I don't think. Well, I mean, we'll get into the score in a second, but I don't think if Texas wins, that they're gonna blow Arkansas out, and a big reason for that is the secondary and the second level on in that defense.
Folks, we've got Arkansas gear. You can go to voiceofcollegefootball.com, voiceofcollegefootball.com, go to the top of the page, go to our store, pick out your team. We got all the Power Fives and most of the Group of Fives, including the Hogs. So check out what we've got available for you right there. Got to check out what Ty Hudson's got available talking Arkansas football. So before we dive any more into Texas, where can people find you and exactly what you got working right now?
I don't have swag yet, Mark. I'm working on that, though. I got to get some swag. I got to get some T-shirts out there, bumper stickers or something.
That would be beautiful.
No, you can find me on Pig Trail Network on the YouTube channel here, Twitter, of course, at Pig Trail Network. That's really the only two spaces I'm at. I know I've been asked, why don't you have a Facebook? Why aren't you on Insta? Why aren't you? It's just like I like focusing on those two areas for now. But yeah, Twitter and of course Pig Trail Network on YouTube.
Best way to do it. Focus, get it down, deliver. Don't scatter yourself too much. We tend to do that here at the Voice of College Football. So we're trying to focus on in and deliver. All right. Texas, I think they answered more questions than Arkansas just because they played a more quality opponent, as you mentioned, and I think that they performed rather well. I saw probably about half this game, considering that Louisiana, of course, isn't going to match the talent, the speed, the athleticism, all those things, but brought back more productivity on both sides of the ball than any team in the country from a very successful 11-1 team. And they pretty much scored 12 points. The last touchdown didn't matter. Hudson Card in his first start, 14 of 21, didn't turn the ball over, a couple touchdown passes. So this is interesting because, again, Texas has been the most disappointing program in college football for the last 10 years. Maybe this is a different group right here. This is the type game that they would have tripped up on previously against a team that does the right things and isn't going to beat themselves. So Texas had to win this game, and they were clearly the better team. And now we've got Texas at Arkansas, touchdown favorite for the Longhorns this week.
Yeah, so I watched some of that game live, and then the rest I watched on YouTube, what I could catch. And Hudson Card stood out pretty well in the passing game for the most part. I think he had 7 incompletions, 14 of 21. A couple of scores, quarterback rating hovering around like 88 to 95, somewhere in there. Pretty good for a redshirt freshman. Not bad at all. Of course, that was a home crowd. He's about to walk into it's a hornet's nest, Mark. And this crowd has been waiting for this. Of course, last year we could only sit 16,000, and we knew that was a rebuild. Now all of a sudden there's a little bit of hype. Like this team might be good enough to make a bowl game, and Hog fans are restless. They're talking about the only tickets that are available right now are standing room only tickets, which I think are $50, which is insane, by the way. But $50 to stand and watch the Hogs. I know a lot of people that'll do it. If I didn't have a post game show, I'd probably be there. But This is the biggest game in Fayetteville in a while because of coming off a COVID year, not being able to go to the game, and it's Texas. Like you mentioned earlier, these are old Southwest Conference rivals. These two teams hated each other. It probably was more of a rivalry to Hog fans than it was to UT, but I've talked to some old school UT fans, guys in their 50s and 60s, and they're like, we hated Arkansas. We hated you as much as we hated Oklahoma. This means a lot, especially to the OGs. And younger kids, I think, are starting to figure it out. Okay, wait a minute. This was actually a thing. If you open up a media guide and you look at, the years that they played each other, there's some great games, some great matchups. This is going to be one for the books. They could break an attendance record. I think 2010 against Bama, Arkansas had about 77, just under 77,000 fans. They're expecting the possibility of being north of that because of the expansion on the north end zone. Gives you a little bit more seating, plus the standing room only tickets. So it's going to be hostile for Hudson Card and that Texas offense. I'm sure Sarkisian's going to have them ready to go. But this is a big, big deal in Fayetteville. I mean, they've been waiting for this. I feel like I really do, and I think it was part of the reason why Arkansas got off to a slow start against Rice. I think they've been prepping for Texas most of offseason. If you want my honest opinion, this is the biggest game in Sam Pittman's head coaching career. It's short. I get it. He's his first time as a head coach at this level last year, but this is the biggest game so far in his 12 games as a head coach. This is it, because it's a game that Arkansas fans feel like is within reach. And I think that's accurate. I think this game is absolutely within reach. If this were at Texas, maybe I feel a little bit different. Maybe I wouldn't feel like it was in reach, but I think because it's in Fayetteville, because you've got a young redshirt freshman quarterback, I think they might get rattled a little bit. They had 8 penalties last week, and you're right. They look crisper, especially on the offense side of the ball. I would argue their offensive line, their pass blocking was not very good. And it was to me, I would almost argue not that it was a weakness, but it was something that at their best, they're very average. And that's odd considering I think they returned 4 out of 5 returning starters up front. And Hudson Card was pressured, not a whole lot, but they still gave up 3 sacks along with, I think, 2 other quarterback hurries. But that might be an area of concern for Texas, but for Arkansas, Mark, like I said last time I was here, Arkansas's defensive line has not been – there's nothing exciting going on here. They do get Ridgeway back, and I'm pretty high on Ridgeway and all these transfers, actually. Trey Williams, Utsi, those guys. I think there could be an opportunity here where the defensive line proves people like me wrong. This is their opportunity. Go out, pin your ears back. It is Barry Odom, defensive coordinator, arguably one of the biggest names as a defensive coordinator in college football. These are the kind of games, this is what you hired him for. And now you've got an opportunity with these transfers to come in and make a statement. Let's see that defensive line. Let's see that pass rush. I don't care where it's coming from. I don't care if you got to blitz cattle on 15 times in this game. Let's figure out a way to pressure this young quarterback and put him into a situation where his heels are up against his goal line. Let's force him to be uncomfortable. I think that's probably going to be their goal one way or another, to force him to be really rattled, along with that loud Arkansas, with that booming audience or the people in the seats. I think that's going to be something they focus on. But I agree, Texas looked crisper, and I think they even played a higher quality team in Louisiana. If we are to buy into the fact that that's a top 25 caliber non-P5 school, then yeah, absolutely, Texas looked really good. Outside of their pass blocking and those eight penalties, Arkansas had 13 penalties for 100 too many yards against Rice. So, we'll see how this thing plays out. This really is, for me, a coin toss kind of game. It really is. It's a coin toss for me. But they have weapons. Bijan Robinson, I don't know if he had a chance to catch much of what he does, but holy cow, I don't know what that guy's 40 time is. I don't know what he looks like with the cone drill and all this stuff, but he looked good in the spring when I watched him, and he looked just as good against what I think is a pretty decent Louisiana Raging Cajun defense. 20 carries, 103 yards. He also caught the ball 4 times for 73 yards. Both the Robinsons back there, him and Killian, are both capable of taking the ball, going yard, and they can catch the ball out of the backfield, along with Hudson Card and or possibly Casey Thompson, who I think is a little bit more of a running kind of quarterback compared to that Card, although Card has some athleticism too. But there's some things here that Texas does on offense that does concern you a little bit if you're a Razorback fan. But It's going to be a crazy environment. It really is. It's going to be nuts. I was really disappointed that Game Day chose Iowa State over this game, but I get why they did. But this is going to be one for the books, I think.
My take on the group of five perspective, and I'm the guy that believes that they should have a spot at the table and all of that, and they're undervalued and that sort of thing. But when it comes to rankings, they're actually overvalued, in my opinion, because Louisiana, if they turn out to be the team that they're supposed to be this year, they'll probably trip up one other time. They'll be a 10-2 football team, and they're going to maintain that top 25 ranking right near the edge of the top 25. Arkansas, let's say Arkansas does what we generally expect of them, and for me that's 6-6. Let's say they go 3-5 in the SEC and drop this game, and somehow it all shakes out to about 6-6. Arkansas is a better football team than Louisiana. Arkansas is not going to be anywhere close to a top 25 ranking as a 6-6 team. They're going to be considered more in the top 50, but they're a better football team, not by a large margin, in my estimation, at this point, until we see more than Louisiana. That's just kind of the caveat we give to group of fives that are able to maintain that 1 or 2 loss record, that we give them that that benefit of the doubt in keeping them in the top 25.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, if Arkansas were to play Louisiana's schedule, I mean, they probably go 11-1, right? I mean, with maybe their only loss to Texas. I mean, that is the truth. Someone made that comment actually about, they were talking about Coastal Carolina. I don't remember who it was. It was either someone local media or maybe it was SEC Network. But they said that if they had Coastal Carolina or Liberty's schedule, they probably go undefeated. And that is the caliber of team. I think Arkansas, I think that is their ceiling. I think they're absolutely capable of a bowl game. I think 6-6 is absolutely within reach. I don't know. I wasn't here to give you my prediction, but I did pick Arkansas at 8-4 this year. And some of that, especially coming out of Rice, I get it. You're drinking the Kool-Aid. Maybe that's not the case. I don't know, or maybe it was. But they definitely didn't look that way. But, I mean, even if they finish 8-4, they're still going to be lucky to be ranked. I mean, and that's what's crazy is of course, that all depends on who they beat along the way. If you beat a bunch of teams that are unranked and are barely looked at as top 50, top 40, then yeah, they don't deserve to be ranked. But you're right, Louisiana, they're going to probably lose this game and then go on and maybe trip up one other time and still be ranked, when Arkansas probably head-to-head wins that game. Then again, maybe not. Maybe they were legit and they gave Texas a pretty decent game in the first half for a reason. So I guess we'll find out Saturday.
We will. Arkansas, Texas. This is historic, folks. They've met 5 times since the breakup out of the Southwestern Conference. Arkansas has won 3 of the 5, a Cotton Bowl. Houston, not Mac Brown. I remember that game, and certainly a bowl game just a few years ago. Brett Bielema's initial bowl victory, 31-7, easy one over Texas in the Texas Bowl. Got Ty Hudson on the line from Pig Trail Network. Ty, there's something I got to apologize for. So after the game, Arkansas fans, no, you need to be locked into Ty's post-game show. So I didn't realize you were on right after the game. You got to be catching Ty's post-game show for Arkansas coverage. That is the only place to be. Place to be after the game.
Well, I appreciate that, Mark.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. All right. Texas and Arkansas. This is about all I got. Is there anything else that we need to hit on? I'm good. But if you think there's anything else that is key to this one.
Well, again, they're going to have to find a way to contain Bijan Robinson. Really, anyone out of that backfield. I think they're so talented. I mean, they really are. Sarkisian walked into a pretty good situation at Texas. I mean, it shouldn't shock anyone that Texas has really good talent. But I think this year, I really think Brett Bielema could coach these guys to a 9-10 win record this year. And yes, that was totally a shot at Brett, even though I respected him as a head coach until that last year. But they're in really good shape. The talent's there. They've got depth. Their defensive line depth is kind of ridiculous. Their only issues, I think, a little bit were, the 8 penalties. Again, Arkansas's in that same department, only worse so, and they definitely were not. That first half was just abysmal for Arkansas, but they got things figured out. But yeah, I think their pass blocking maybe get a little bit of improvement there. If they do what they need to, Texas is without a doubt good enough to win this game and maybe even blow it open. But I don't know if you want to do predictions now or if you've still got something else before that.
I'm not doing any predictions. My predictions are on Patreon, folks. So unfortunately, I don't want to. I certainly got to honor those folks on Patreon. So my pick's always on Patreon. Hey, Ty, if you want to give it up here, absolutely, we'll take it.
I'll say this. I think there's 3 scenarios. I think there's one of the so this is either a blowout Texas win. That's one of the scenarios. A close win for Texas or a close win for Arkansas. I think those are the 3 scenarios. I'll tell you what, I don't know when you plan on releasing this, but I have my 11 o'clock show tomorrow on September 10th. Tune in there. I'll give you my actual, what I think happens, but I think it might surprise people a little bit, but after all, it shouldn't shock anyone when I picked Arkansas to go 8-4, and that's all for funsies. I know I caught people were telling me in my postgame show, "Are you still drinking the Kool-Aid, Ty?" I'll just tell you, I think that first half was abysmal, but they did pick it up, and they did manage to score a whole bunch of points in the second half against Rice, and they almost completely shut them down. So I wonder if we don't see that continue in terms of their play on the field in the second half into this Texas game, along with actually being able to open up the entire playbook. I think that's something fans need to factor into. And of course, Mark, I mean, for Hog fans, they know what it's all about. It's horns down in Arkansas. It's horns down in Fayetteville and NWA and Little Rock, down in Fort Smith and the River Valley. It's horns down 247. Hogs, baby. Go Hogs. Go Arkansas. I'm excited for this game.
Ty showing us some passion. He always shows us passion, but it's good to get him on game week, especially. You get it in May with him, but especially game week. It's phenomenal. And yes, Ty is right. Do not overreact to week 1 results. They mean something. Of course they do. They played football, so it's meaningful, but it's just a slice. It is just a slice of the complete picture.
That's right.
Ty, we appreciate you coming on as always.
Hey, I enjoy it, Mark. Thanks a lot for having me on.